another Aligner Insider podcast. Well, hello everybody in podcast land, and welcome to the biggest celebration to hit this planet since the bicentennial. Dr. Glaser, we are here today to celebrate the 100th podcast of Aligner Insider.
Yeah, man. All right, Dean. How you doing, Dean?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. It's an exciting event. Today is Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, and yeah, it's amazing that we've done 100 of these. So I think it's a great time to do a little retrospective and kind of reflect on who we've spoken to and just how much the world has changed since 2017 or 2018 when we started these things.
It really has. It's been a good journey. I really, things have changed a lot over the last 3 years. Obviously, in marketing and orthodontists in the world, and if we could just like go back in time, we could think back to the first podcast. If you think back to the first podcast you and I did, I think it was with Moses when he parted the Red Sea,
Yeah.
which was a pretty interesting part of the world back then. Let my people go, let my people get straight teeth, and from there it's been a journey like crazy. And I think our second podcast might have been with Thomas Edison. When he was doing that crazy thing, the light bulb, we got him going, we got him smiling then. So it's been been pretty interesting.
The Aligner Insider podcast has always been on the cutting edge of history.
It really has. I feel like Bill and Ted, kind of. We could go back in time. We could go meet with Socrates. That was a great.
Socrates, Plato, all the big ones.
Plato, exactly. Genghis Khan. That's some great. Billy, Mister the Kid. Some great stuff there. So those of you who don't know what we're talking about, just catch up to the times of 1988, will you?
So great.
Yep, so great. So back in we started this thing in 2018 and talking about how technology has changed your practice, and back then technology 3 years ago was almost like the dark ages. There was no such thing as TikTok. There was no such thing. Nobody really put videos up. There was no. Sure, there was SEO and the internet was important, but boy, oh boy, times have changed. Back then we talked about different technologies for mandibular advancement, for example. What has changed? What has changed in 3 years in technologies, and from your side there?
From MA in particular, or from everything?
Yeah, exactly. Just from a practice standpoint, what's changed over the last 3 years in technology? Obviously there was no such thing as remote monitoring. There was no such thing as virtual consultations.
Mm-hmm.
That's from a usage standpoint, a marketing standpoint, and bringing on new patients, but at the same time making it more effective. But what are some things that weren't around 3 years ago? Back in the old days.
I'll give you a quick list, and then maybe we can hit one or two just to talk
Sure.
about. So things. This is something that I haven't incorporated into my office, because of COVID. It kind of slowed me down. But 3D printing is obviously come a long way since in the last 3 or 4 years. Remote treatment monitoring, whether it's using dental monitoring or Invisalign virtual care. Virtual consultations, and there's a lot of platforms. Where I'm a big fan of SmileSnap. It's worked really well for me. There's certainly been an explosion of clear aligner companies in the market, and out of all of them, I mean, the ones that have really been the biggest disruptors are obviously been the direct to consumer companies. I think in 2017 that pretty much didn't exist, or maybe it existed,
barely, right?
Barely. There's been, I think the prices of 3D imaging, for radiographs, 3D cone beam X-rays, that has come down. So I think that's becoming more and more commonplace. Other things, outsourcing. I'm using OrthoFi now, so outsourcing your, let's say, insurance and billing has really grown over the last couple of years. And then on top of everything else, there's been a rapid rise in DSOs and OSOs. So there's been this consolidation in the orthodontic industry where doctors are thinking about selling, maybe getting some equity out, maybe getting an equity stake in these OSOs and DSOs like Smile Doctors and Orthodontic Partners and those. So,
Right.
I mean, that's an awful lot for
hasn't
I
it?
mean, and I'm sure I'm missing about 20 other things, Dean, but that's an
Right.
awful lot for a relatively short period of time.
Think about it. I mean, how much things have changed in only 3 short years, as you said. I mean, from my side, virtual consultations are huge from a marketing and branding standpoint and differentiator. Virtual consultations, and to be able to, and sometimes you have to say, thank God for COVID to a certain degree, because it really made things change and made people adapt and get on board with new technologies.
Right.
Same thing with using, you know, monitoring issues,
Mhm.
programs. I've got my Invisalign in, and and every week I look forward to
Nice to
doing my
see.
scans on DM and seeing if it works, and that
Looks
really
like that upper
makes you.
lip lateral is not tracking, Dean. We'll have to take a little closer look at that.
I know.
But and the other things from, like, let's say, the non-clear aligner side, that other things, as we're talking, are popping into my head. There's now more digitization, if that's the right word, in the fixed appliance space. So there's Light Force Orthodontics, which is a custom, sort of a 3D custom bracket system, and then there's InBrace, which is a lingual system which does the same thing. So it's not just within the clear aligner space that we're seeing digital technology, really coming to the forefront. It's even in,
Right.
in, in fixed appliances. So yeah,
It's
I'm sure, like I said, these will just keep popping into my mind. But just,
right.
that's how, and on top of everything else, there's, the fogger that I have in my office, the disinfection, the the,
Right.
the, the sneeze guards, all of the COVID protocols. We now have parents waiting out in the parking lot. We have to ask all the pre-screening questions. I mean,
Right.
that's just, you know, D- but by the way, this is our 100th podcast. I'm going to try to ban the phrase That's what we're going
Okay.
to work on. Every time
Okay.
I say I'm going to donate $1 to charity. You too,
Okay.
Dean. All right. So,
I have, just so you know, I have a big sign on my computer that says, with the line through it, stop, because I say
yeah.
it so much as well.
So we're
It's
going to have
it's
to
it's a crutch,
kick money into. We'll have
you
to get
know?
like a little coffee can or a cigar box and kick money in, and we'll give that to a local charity.
Exactly.
Now, of course, I completely forgot what I was going to say, but it's, oh, I know, there's been orthodontics dentistry. It's a stressful, it's a wonderful profession. Don't get me wrong. If I had to do it all over again, I do the same thing. But there's a lot of stresses and pressures. And if you think about the amount of change that you, it's not so much, I think, on the patient side, because the patients just think it's all cool, but you and your staff. I mean, it's been a lot of change, a lot of pressure, a lot of stress that comes along with that, a lot of joy too. I mean, it's also really cool, but change isn't so easy, especially for old dogs like us.
Right.
And it's so I think that everybody should make sure that they do something nice for their teams also, because your teams have to be on board with this stuff to make us look good, and make sure that we're delivering the best possible care to our patients too. So it's been a wild ride, but then again, it's kind of exciting, right?
It really is. I love what I do because things have changed so much over the years. From building my first
You
website
know what?
12.
There's a right there. We're gonna have to have like a little thing on the podcast, like
Ding,
it's kind of
ding.
exactly a little bell. Ding,
Exactly.
bell.
Dollar, ding, dollar, ding, dollar. We're gonna solve the country's debt after
Yeah,
about 3 podcasts.
it's like when someone hits a home run in the seventh inning, they donate money
Right.
to whatever the children's hospital or
Right.
something like that.
The
So we'll
New
do the
York
same
Apple
thing.
will pop. The Apple will pop up if they still do. I don't know if they still do the Big Apple or not. Do they? Uh,
Sure, of course, they do the Big Apple.
okay. All right. That shows how often I'm watching Met games these days, or how
But
little home runs they're hitting.
exactly. But anyway, I will cut you. I will not. I'm going to get a bell next time, and we'll ring the bell anytime someone says
Ding.
the ding.
Bingo.
All right. I will
Exactly.
not interrupt again.
Right, because we totally lost track of what we were going there. But that's what happens when you celebrate 100 podcasts, guys. You can just go in different tangents.
It's just a wild party today, right?
It really is. Woohoo! So over the last several years, we've had some really great guests on our podcast. Just going back, I'm looking at some of our great guests back from we had, Dobie Prero, the orthodontist to the stars out in L.A., to
Hmm.
Scott Fry, to Dr. John Nicodesis, to Michelle Shimon, to Chris Benson, to Nick Palumbo, a financial planner, to Maz Mashiri, to Donna Galante, to Mark Van Weel, to Mary's List, to Regina Blevins, to another Chris Benson, to Joe Hogan, the CEO of Invisalign, Frank Quinn, and other Invisalign Technologies higher up, and et cetera, et cetera. So we had some
We
really
had
great guests along the way
Philippe
there. Philippe
Salah from
Salah,
dental
exactly.
monitoring. Yeah.
Yep. Ruz Kasravi, a lot of great, CEO of Smile Snap. Greg, we've had some great, guests over the last several years there, and we're excited to have all these people back for second, third rounds with us, to bring on new people. We're always trying to keep in touch with the pulse of the community and technology, and bringing new opportunities and information to the industry. And we had some fun over the last few years, and we're going to be doing it again there. So, if you had a basically, I'm going to ask this question a lot, and we're not going to do the Reese's question here, but you know, let's put
I was
on a
waiting for
crystal.
that.
Let's put on our crystal ball hat here,
Okay.
and so the last 3 years, we can't even imagine what's going to come down the pike in 2022, three or four. But if you had to, see one seismic change that you think might happen in the next 2, 3 years, what would you think it'll be?
Seismic change.
Seismic, like complete game changer.
Other than hopefully my Bitcoin going up.
Think it
What
hit
do I
50
think?
today.
What do I think? I think that, all right, so this is maybe a little bit far out there, and I am not the expert, like Ruz, oh, I said, ding, Ruz Kuzravi is with 3D printing, but I think that it seems like with conversations with like Scott Fry and Ruz and those people, not we, the technology is getting closer to the point where aligners within, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years may be able to be directly printed without having to go through the step of, Dean, for example, if I want to make an aligner in house, or if Align Technology or at any other clear aligner company wants to make an aligner, one aligner, we have a digital scan that's got to be processed, through all these billions of dollars of technology,
Right.
but essentially a 3D model of your teeth is printed, and then plastic is vacuumed over that, sucked down over that model.
Hmm.
And that's very labor intensive and it's very expensive. So we're getting closer to the point where the model is going to disappear. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say within the next 3 to 5 years, we will get to the point where quality aligners, because that's another issue, the materials property have to be correct to move teeth. Quality aligners will be able to be directly 3D printed, and I think that's going to be a huge game changer.
Hmm.
Imagine it's like a little gumball machine in your
Right.
office that
On
you can
demand.
take
Yep.
scans, and it just spits the aligners out. And if in particular, I think for those that are doing in-house aligners, there's still a lot of labor costs to that, because there's someone you have to pay someone to to do all the pre-production technology, or the doctors doing all that kind of stuff. Then you got to pay for the resin and machine, and you have to pay for somebody to post produce post. I'm not even using the right terms, but post treat that model to the point where an aligner can be made. Then you have to suck down the plastic. Then you have to trim and finish the plastic. Then they have to be packaged and boxed, and that's an awful lot of steps. And it's expensive. So if we can eliminate some of those steps, in particular the producing of the models, where we can produce an aligner directly, I think that's going to be a huge game changer for orthodontists and for the industry as well.
Hmm. Do you see the price dropping as well?
Well, theoretically, yes, but it never seems to work out the way. Like, whenever anytime they build a new bridge, they put a toll booth up, and the promise is, well, eventually when the bridge gets paid for, the toll booth is gonna go away, and then the toll booth doesn't
Never
go away
happens.
because they can't lose the revenue.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I certainly think that on the in-house aligner side, if doctors can save costs, at least look, they may decide to charge more, I suppose, maybe because they think the technology is more cool, but it's going to give them the ability, if they can produce aligners at a lower overall cost, that's including labor and materials and all the other things, it will give them the choice to perhaps be more competitive with, let's say, the lower stage products that are offered by some of the direct to consumer companies. So,
Hmm.
because right now, if you want to do in-house aligners and charge 19.99 and compete with DTC, it's very hard to make a profit,
Right.
because it's just it's very hard to scale.
Small margin.
So
Right.
I think that perhaps it could make it drive down the cost to patients, which is always a good thing, but maybe also allowing the doctors to be more efficient and to still be profitable. So I think that's a possibility. Yeah.
I think that's great. I love the insight there, and that's I believe things are going to go that way as well. Because every time I speak to a client or a new practice, they're looking at doing aligners in house, using different platforms, using different technologies, different providers, and trying to be more efficient and effective, and competing with DTCs. And how do you do so? Sure, there's a value to using a professional, but where is that value? What's the value? Where's the difference? Is it to the public? Sure, you could pay half as much to do it yourself, but you shouldn't. But
Right.
at the same time, how does the public see that? Well, why should I spend
Yeah.
6,000 when I could spend two? Versus,
Yeah, and in
you
the
know,
online groups, Dean, like I see people saying, "Well, I can produce an aligner for a couple of dollars," and again, maybe we should have Ruse or Scott back, both of them back on again. But I think that I'm skeptical of that because I think we're there. You have to factor in the cost of the machine, the cost of the resin, the cost of the staff member. There's upfront technology, materials, and labor costs that go beyond just whatever the cost of the piece of plastic is. So I'm not sure, like if you make a real calculation for factoring all of those things in, and then in 3 years your 3D printer dies and you need to buy a new one. The software, all of those other things, what the actual, even for let's say an office that's really knocking it out of the park with in-house aligners, and then I'll get the packaging. I know a lot of you have to get the custom packaging and the printing, and then someone's got to box all that kind of stuff. So I have yet to see. Maybe I just haven't seen it. I have yet to see a real accurate calculation of all the associated costs to produce an aligner.
right.
But I think so. Those are areas where if we can sort of chisel away at some of those costs, it makes it much more viable for. And my mom calling me for some reason. She calls on my cell phone, then she calls on the house phone, and then she calls in my office. I'm like, Ma, I'm doing a podcast. Okay,
Right. Come on, ma, ma,
it,
meatballs.
then she'd be like, I was trying to reach you. I can't even turn this on. I was trying to reach you. How come you didn't pick up the phone? And I'm like, I guess I'm working, Ma. God
Exactly,
bless her.
ma. Come
God
on.
bless her. God bless her. So now let's see. Why can I turn this off? We're just gonna let
Just
it ring.
let
Maybe
mom
we'll
ring.
have to ding for every time we say Um,
Right.
God bless her. My mom and dad are still around. They're 80, 89 years old. So I am incredibly grateful that they're still here. But right now, she's like, if I don't, I said, Mom, if I don't pick up the phone, I promise you, if I'm not laying in the ditch, which is probably what she thinks, I will call you back. But
Okay.
anyway, okay, here we go. All right.
There you go.
It'll start to ring again in another couple of seconds. You'll see.
All good.
So, but so I think that's an area that I think, yeah, and of course, the big players, the big aligner manufacturers, whether the DTCs or the Align Technologies and the other companies, Spark and 3M and all of those. I think they're also going to be, here's something, not trying to be, I guess maybe I'm trying to be a futurist a little bit, but I think about like the music industry. Okay, so it started off with records, and then with 8 tracks and CDs and all that kind of stuff. And in all of those models, right, the big cost was the producing of the media. You had to you had to have a factory. You had to print the records. You
Right.
had to package them. You had to ship them, right? And all of those costs ultimately, which really disrupted the music industry, was when it all went digital, and the physical media has disappeared. Now it's all just digital downloads, and I think that ultimately that's where the clear aligner market's going to go. That there's going to be a point where maybe, and I am not spreading rumors because I don't know if this is really going to happen, but to me, at some point, you know, does a big company like Align, really need to have this humongous factories or these factories all over the world to produce the models and produce the aligners and to box them and ship them and all those associated costs versus licensing the technology to the point where, let's say, maybe an aligner gumball machine in the corner of your office, and it just spits them out, in your office, and then now Align is like Apple, right? Where oh, there's the call again from mom. Um, so yeah, I think that all those things are potentially on the table, where eventually the producing, the packaging, and the shipping of the aligners is going to kind of go away. But you have to think that the big players, they're going to want a piece of that pie. They're not going to
Right.
just say to doctors, okay, fine, if you want to 3D print your aligners, you're on your own. They're going to want a piece of the software. They're going to want a piece of the licensing. So I see that probably happening. Maybe more than 3 to 5 years, but I think that's going to be another big disruptor in our business.
I agree 100% on that. You have no choice. You know that you have to adapt. You have to be able to, because those companies are not stupid. You know, they see that there are 250, 300 million people in this country alone that they can sell to. Why would they not? So it's a
Right.
big opportunity to reach that market there, and why not, be able to adapt it to the wholesalers, which would be orthodontists and dental practices there. So
Right.
I think
Right.
that's I think that's a very insightful information there, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think that's the way things are going to go, and you have to, like once I said it 99 times before, and I'll say it on number 100: adapt or die, and you're going to have to
Exactly.
do so on there.
Now let me flip this around a little bit, Dean. So what do you see as the big major game changers in the marketing business for orthodontic practices?
It's in my eyes, it's going to be even a bigger pay for play platform out there. It used to be you had a Facebook page and you put up a post on your Facebook page. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you had 1,000 people follow you. 1,000 people would see your post.
Right.
Then it went down to 500 people, then went down to 200 people, 100 people, and now that number is 1% of
Right.
people who follow you see your post. So you have to pay, and I think it's going to get more and more and more. That's why Facebook is where they are. That's why companies like TikTok are now offering videos that can be sponsored and promoted. And in order to do so, you have no choice but have a secondary budget. It's going to get bigger and bigger as time goes on because you have more and more players in the industry. Like if you do a Google search for, orthodontist, or Invisalign or braces in your town, you're going to see ads from direct to consumers. You're going to see ads from GPs. You're going to see ads from orthodontists. So you're going to see a lot of different, competition trying to reach your target market that was never there before, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. More and more of these companies have more and more. Investors and more raises that they have ability to market themselves, and they have huge budgets to do so. That's why Invisalign is everywhere. That's why the Invisalign is sponsoring the NFL. Well, did last year. I don't know if they're doing it this year or not, but
They are. They are.
so that's a big investment to have that shield and
Hmm.
to be part of that there. So in my eyes, it's going to only be bigger and bigger as far as an advertising budget goes, and typically over the years, that a percentage of your revenue should be allocated towards advertising, and depending upon the market you're in, that number used to be starting somewhere about 6 to 8%, and now it's almost double that. So based upon, you're doing $1 million, you should be spending somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000 plus in marketing or advertising. You have no choice, and I think it's going to get bigger and bigger as far as that. You can only do so much organic stuff. And you
Hmm.
could, sure, and to have a right program in place and to get referrals and get internal marketing and to get more reviews and stuff like that is important. But at the same time, you got to push yourself out to the community more and more and get through the clutter. And in my eyes, the only way that's going to happen and seeing this trend has been over the last several years, and it's going to get bigger and bigger, is you're going to have to pay more and more because the more and more platforms will be out there. It used to be just put your post up on Facebook. Now we have to
Hmm.
put your post up on Instagram. We have to put it on Facebook. We have to put it up on Reels. We have to put it up on. We have to get active on TikTok. You have to be active on things like Google My Business. You have to be active on things if you want to get more referrals. You potentially have to be active on LinkedIn as well. So there's a lot
Hmm.
of different ways that you need to be marketing yourself and positioning yourself and putting your content out there. And the only way to get, in my eyes, that's going to be you're going to get above the clutter and above the noise is to have a larger budget. You know, Google. If somebody says to Google right now, show my ad, and they say, well, my budget's $1,000, and then somebody has a budget around the corner of $3,000, Google's going to show their ad more than yours. It's that simple.
Hmm.
And the same thing with all the social media platforms out there. So in my eyes, I think it's going to be just a much bigger pay for play platform as far as marketing your practice and branding and promoting yourself. And it's only going to get bigger and bigger. So I think in 3 4 years that number is going to be closer to 20 25% because you can have no choice. And anybody that does not advertise or get the name out there will be left behind and buried because
Hmm.
there'll be more and more D2C companies. There'll be more and more DSOs that's got deeper pockets. There'll be more and more um, competitors out there that are opening up that are going to be offering your services. So you got no choice but pay more money, which is
Yep,
kind of a bummer. But we have no choice. But again, adapt or die. So we had to
that's how
adapt.
it goes. Yeah,
So that's how I see it there. So things have changed. People, a lot of our clients, when we first started to work with them, 12 15 years
ding,
ago, didn't even have a budget. Thing.
ding.
Woo! Love it.
Right, but they didn't have a budget at all, right?
Right, didn't need one.
Hmm.
Now you have no choice, and I say half of our clients have secondary budgets
Right.
for ads, and it's growing and growing and growing. And again, we have no choice to do so. So that's how I see it there. So, in closing, Dr. Glazer, what would you like to tell the orthodontic dental community about what's going to be coming down the pike for Liner Insider in the upcoming next 100th podcasts or so?
Oh gosh. Well, that's an interesting question. Before I get to that, I did want to say that please let us know what you want to see. For our listeners,
Right.
we've got the Aligner Insider Clinical Chat Group. We've got tons of people on there. Like to hear a little bit more from you. It's I know what happens on the social media. You've got maybe 1% of the people that are active, and everyone else kind of lurks in the shadows. But we're here for you. I mean, we don't. This is no charge. This is one of our many. Ding. I keep saying this is this is one of our many things that you and I look at as a way to give back to the community. So let us know what you'd like to hear. We're always interested if you have a product, if you have something that you're doing in your office, if you have a colleague that is doing something innovative and they're looking for a platform. Let us know. Let us know in the Facebook group. You can always get in touch with us. Email me at my office is perfectly fine. My email is drglaser@glazerortho.com. They can also get you at your email, which is what's the best email for ortho marketing? Is just info@orthomarketing.com.
Correct. Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so let us know. So what's coming down the pike? We're going to continue to look for those people that are on the bleeding edge of technology, the innovators, the Moseses and the Thomas Edisons of the orthodontic profession that are the Billy Beans of the orthodontic profession that are looking to have the next great breakthrough, the next thing that's going to make treatment better and more predictable, that's going to make our practices better, that's going to make it a bit better experience both from our side as well as the patient care side. So we're going to continue to push to make sure that we're getting the leaders and innovators on here, and so that you can hear what they're up to and learn and hopefully be a little entertained at the same time.
That's our goal. Ding, ding, ding. Great. So once again, everybody in podcast land, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. We're excited to see what's going to come down for our next 100 podcasts. Barry and I really enjoy doing this. We love having some fun. Talking to our colleagues, talking to the industry leaders, bringing you guys great information and making you smile. So with that said out there in podcast land, stay tuned to the next opportunity to hear the next Aligner Insider on this great chime, on this great channel. So until then, we look forward to making you smile. Barry, thanks so much and look
Always
forward
a
to it.
pleasure, Dean.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I
Bye,
got
everybody.
$100 out of my wallet right now.
Exactly. All right, everybody be safe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.